Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Big Short. Here we are going to discuss everything that's going on in the market that perhaps isn't getting as much focus as perhaps it should be, because there's some real big changes going on in the market. So I'm going to welcome, and I'm sat beside Louis Bowers. Louis, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. No, really looking forward to this, seeing a lot of reports coming out, but then we're seeing a lot of focus in certain areas off plan, and some of the segments in the market aren't being discussed as much as they should.
They're not, and that's what we're here to do. So right, 15-20 minutes, let's just get through it, what's going on. So first and foremost, let's talk about AirDXB, the best short-let company in Dubai. I think so, I'm sure you think so. Great figures to come through from the company, 100% booked up for the last 6-7 days or so, which is phenomenal. On booking.com, there are about approximately 9,000 or 10,000 units. AirDXB roughly has 5% of that market, which is fantastic, especially when you think there's 500 million people using that platform around the world.
Exactly. I think around 5% market share is phenomenal for our clients. It really does mean that anyone who's looking is going to have exposure at some point to our properties.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we're seeing the results that we are. And of course, as a business in general, we are moving forward, taking on lots of stock. And here we're going to discuss why we are. So first and foremost, what is going on in the rental market? And that is something that I want to get into. Did you know, and I'm sure you do because we discuss it a hell of a lot, that in the last 16 months, rental transactions have dropped 44%, and in the last 6 months, 43%, and month on month, so this last 2 months, rental transactions have dropped 23%, I stand corrected, 23%, right? Why is no one talking about this, and what does this mean for the market?
Well, the problem is, I think the only person who's actually mentioned it is the CEO of Danube. He came out recently and said it's not slowing down at the moment. We're looking at another 10 to 20% drops through this year.
That's in value.
Yes,
in value,
because of the influx of properties coming on board.
Well, as we can see by the percentage of transactional drop, which is huge.
Massive.
And he was calling it a correction.
Yes.
10-20%.
10-20% is a correction.
Is that a correction, or is that a little bit more?
No, if you look
being
at
from the West,
any other market,
someone said a drop like that, we'd probably be moving that towards I'll use the big C word. That is a hell of an impact.
You look at London, Dubai, Singapore, where we like to compare Dubai as a real estate market too. Corrections are what? 1%, 2%?
3% max?
10, 20%. So look, it's interesting that people are referring to as correction. I think the reality might be something very, very different. How long that takes effect? Well, I think people might start realizing this towards the end of the summer when it's meant to boom back up again. But look, let's see, there's 78,000 properties approximately coming on board. And from what we can see with the off-plan developer transactions, that's going to be another 300,000 over the upcoming years. Yeah,
look, we'll get into that in a minute. Let's just stay back on this rental bit here. So this is what we've got from Property Monitor as a source. That's where these figures have come from. So what's that going to do to the short-let market? What's your prediction?
I think the short-let market, we're going to have a lot of people as looking as an option for them. What you find is you've got really two options. Is one, you put it online. It can be sat there vacant for months, mortgages building up, service charges.
And one thing I want to jump in there is that you've got to look at a 12-month cycle. So I'm dealing with a lot of owners at the moment who are saying, oh, my property's been sat empty for 2 months for long term. And I've said, well, you've got to factor that into your 12-month tenancy. So you've now lost 2 months of your 12 months. So your income is collapsing.
So that's why I think a lot of people are going to look to short term,
where you immediately get straight into an income.
Correct. Yes. I think the great thing about the short term, and what we always talk about, is flexibility. I think now coming into this market is more prevalent than ever. You're going to have people who look to put it on the short term, get that immediate revenue coming through, pay off their mortgage, they can sit back nice and easy. And again, they may still look at long term. Who knows? But at least they're getting the revenue through. Last thing you want is to be sat there in an area like JVC waiting for someone to come along to rent it, when every single day new properties are handing over next to you in better quality buildings.
This is it. Also, we're coming to the summer months. As we know, the market tends to get tougher. What is this going to do to prices? So our friend, I think at Danube, is saying a 10 to 20% correction. Do we think prices will drop more? I mean, we were looking at several properties yesterday together, for argument's sake, something like the studio in Palm Views.
Yes.
They were going through 100, 105. They're now, a client came to us and said, we've been trying 80, can't get it. We've seen 2 beds in Shoreline on the Palm Jumeirah were 210,000. we've seen deals going through now 170, 175.
Correct.
So there is a drop in prices, but how far is it going to go when you see figures like this?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think anyone actually knows. No one wants to talk about it massively. You've got people come back and say, look, JVC, Arjan, they're going to definitely drop because you've got so many properties coming to the market. But the fact that we're seeing these prime areas, like you just mentioned, 2-bed on Shoreline, 50k difference over the last 8 months. Same with studios and Palm Views, and these are fantastic buildings. They're getting affected as well. I don't really know where it's going to go. We've only just started. Yes.
I was going to say that this is only just started, and it's figures that the market isn't talking about. And the one huge thing here is how this will affect then the buying market, because if I'm a buyer that is looking for a return on investment, but I'm now being told that the prices for rentals are dropping 10, 20, 30, 40%, how will I then view purchasing that property? Am I still going to pay that same price, or am I going to pay that in accordance with that return I'm going to get? As we know, Dubai likes minimum 5-6% return. I mean, I remember, what was it, 2, 3, 4 years ago, you're getting 10, 15, 20%, but 5-6% return. So if rentals will drop, then will that have an effect on sales prices?
For the secondary market, 100%. I think this is, we've seen some reports coming out from Allsop, and completely true that the off-plan market is absolutely booming at the moment. I think if you've got property prices increasing on the secondary market, a reduction in long-term rentals, your ROI comes down, but you need to put all of that capital up front. It's going to push people away. I think a lot more people are going to look to the secondary market because they have a longer payment plan. Let's see.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, we'll talk about this in a minute, because there are some interesting figures coming from that. So long-term in general, these are huge figures demonstrating a drop in new tenancies and renewals. More people, I think, moving to short let, keep control over that asset, as we say. You don't know where this is going to go, and this is only just started. Is only just started.
And the great thing is, a lot of people are using short let as well whilst looking to sell their properties. They don't want to make any snapshot decisions. They don't want to be rushed into selling. Yes, of course, you're going to have distressed deals coming to the market, but a lot of our owners coming to us who do want to sell don't want to rush into it. So they're absolutely fine, very, very happy to put it on the short term, get the revenue through, and hold out for that perfect price.
Yeah,
because with the way the market's going, more stock coming on board, more people looking to sell, it's going to take longer to get those sales through at the price you want.
Yeah, agreed. And again, the whole thing with long term is you do put a tenant in 12 months. Where's this market going to be in 12 months' time?
Correct.
Let's see. Right, moving on. Let's talk about sales. Let's talk about what's going on there. Because again, you start picking this apart, you start seeing some interesting facts and figures. So there's a month, according to Property Monitor, there's a month-on-month sales decrease, right, in transactional volume. So we're looking at around 5.65% to be exact. So looking around 5.65% to be exact. Change. So this is obviously a big thing in itself, because you're showing transactional volume is dropping, which then indicate less people interested in buying. But the figure that people don't jump into is what is actually trading. So we've got 64% of transactions going through at the moment are off plan versus 36%, which is secondary already built. That figure for off plan is growing, which is demonstrating or telling me that there are more people or more investors, more people that are looking to purchase and sell on a profit, which is then saying that there are less people coming into the market to buy secondary properties. So if you couple that now, if you look at long term, there's less transactions happening. There's less sales now happening also. I see it all the time. Nobody gets into it like this. That's why we're doing it. Everyone does year on year. Year on year is brilliant, but as we know, Dubai is a positive and a negative volatile market. It's up and down, up and down, up and down, as we're seeing. But year on year, of course, it's gone up. But why not focus month on month or quarter on quarter? And this is why we're doing this. So if we look at that month on month change, you are seeing such a dynamic here, which isn't going to be positive for the market, because a lot of people are speculating by buying off plan, looking to sell for a profit. I mean, where are these people living, right? They're coming in to buy it. As we talk about these reports coming through from Value which we'll get into in a minute, telling us that 1,000 people are moving a day. Well, where are they living? Because if rentals are dropping and sales transactions for secondary are dropping, where are they going?
This is the biggest problem.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But back onto this, what's your take on this? What do you think?
It's worrying at the moment. It's the only way to describe it. And the biggest problem I'm finding at the moment is, like you just mentioned then, no one's looking at this monthly. No one's breaking down that it's minus 5.65% in March. I'm seeing clients come to say, I've read some reports that now compared to COVID was 5 years ago.
Some of these, yeah.
I saw someone mention to me, yes, but back in 2016.
Yeah.
2016 is almost 10 years ago. You can't be looking that far in advance. You've got to be looking.
Or looking back that far, you mean?
Exactly.
It's a fast-paced market, and everybody says it's fast-paced market. So you've got to look at the here and now. Look at the figures from 12 months ago, or even
a quarter.
8 years ago.
A quarter is probably as far back as you can go.
Yeah.
It's such a different market to what it was in, well, January, February.
Yeah.
Really already seeing it. The rental transactions, the sales prices, they're not the same they are 3 months ago. It's completely correct that everyone says it is a very, very fast market. However, no one wants to look at it in a fast-paced scenario monthly. They will only look at the wider picture. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
The far wider picture. The far wider picture, I think you look at. So I think it's just things that we want to bring to attention here, that look at what is happening month on month and quarter on quarter. And this is something that is big. Transactional volume is dropping, but the off-plan transactional volume is going up, which is signifying this is becoming a hell of a speculator investor market. I'm sure there are people out there buying that will look into move to it in 3 or 4 years, but where are they living now? That's a question I ask. But majority of this you're going to see back on the market marked up for a healthy profit. So what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen in the rest of this year, looking at this?
I don't want to talk about it, but I can only see it going down. I can't see it increasing. Obviously everyone's buying off plan because they want to see the prices appreciate and go up, but I'm starting to see some distressed deals come on board.
I'm seeing more and more distressed deals coming through.
Say I'm going to remove the 500 grand off the back of it, so want to send it immediately. People are going to start doing this, and a lot of people are buying these off-plan properties are basing it on the 10-15% rental yield. We're already seeing that's not going to be the case anymore.
Exactly. And then when we look at stock that's coming into the market, we're talking 74,000 units approximately handing over this year, 25,000 already have. We're averaging roughly 40 to 50 new launches every month so far this year. And we're talking 300,000 handovers in the next 30 to 35 months. That's not including what has been launched over the last 3, 4, 5 months. So what you're seeing is a phenomenal amount of supply, but what this would signify to me is the demand isn't there. So it all starts with rental. It all starts with, if people aren't renting, that then is the domino effect. If people aren't renting, it means that the prices will come down, which means the return on investment for an investor comes down, which means either he's not going to buy or he's going to ask for price reductions to keep that return there. This is the start of it, isn't it?
We've been saying it for months, but I think it's really starting to become apparent.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this from Q3, Q4 last year, that going into this year, we're going to start seeing these numbers, and now they're coming out.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that come the end of the summer, I think the average person on the street is going to start realizing this.
Yeah, I mean, look, the figures are there. The figures are there. We're not making this up. Property Monitor, we've got all our sources from very, very viable people here who feed predominantly from the buy land department. So the information is there. It's just interesting to talk about it, I think.
How's best qualified?
Everybody else is at the moment. Right, okay. So, and then the recent report that's come out, as I just tapped on earlier before, was that Value Strat is saying 1,000 people are moving here a day.
Yes.
Where are they living? Because the transactional volume in the more prominent areas is clearly dropping for rental, and the secondary figure for transactions is clearly dropping because it's dropping 5.6% month on month, but that figure is dropping against off plan, so that shows it's dropping. So although I'm sure there is a population increase, of course there is this the key demographic buying in the areas that majority of the Dubai real estate market focuses on? Figures would suggest no.
Well, this is the problem. And look, especially if you go into some of these secondary areas as well, you go into JVC, you go into the Arjans, a lot of these buildings which have handed over and completed, you drive around and they're not tenanted. I've gone into some of these buildings and gone, right, what out of interest, how many apartments available? Oh, we're about 20% occupied.
So you're dealing with a building in JVC, there's about 160, 170 units.
Yeah.
They've leased, 20 units in 3 or 4 months?
Correct, yes. Which is slightly worrying, because what you find as well, you look around and you've got others handing over immediately. You've got other ones handing over. We had one next to us which just handed over. Then you've got a couple across the road which have been open for 2-3 months. You have a look at the building and you can see balcony furniture on maybe 3 apartments per floor.
Yeah, and it's the lights on at night, isn't it?
Exactly.
The age-old test to see what it is, yeah.
So, yeah, not exact, but,
Not exact, and we want to say that, but it gives you a feel. So with these people coming in, perhaps it demonstrates that the demographic is somewhat different from what you would look at as the real estate demographic going into more popular areas that we know of.
Yes.
So again, I think that's something we've got to look at as well, because if there was 1,000 coming in a day, where are they living? because if they're not renting and they're obviously not buying, where are they living? Perhaps it's in different parts of Dubai, which isn't the predominant brokerage real estate market, and the brokers focus on. So what do you think is going to happen for the next 12 months in this market, looking at everything we're looking at?
Well, next 12 months, I completely agree with what the CEO of Danube is saying.
Yeah.
I think it's going to go down by 10-20%.
Rentals.
Yeah, whether you call that a correction or not, it's entirely up to yourself. And I don't think it's going to stop. I think we've got these...
It's because of the stock coming in.
Correct.
If stock just stopped, it would hold itself.
It's never going to happen.
It's just going to keep feeding.
Exactly. We've got another 77,000 approximately handing over next year. If we've got a 10-20% drop this year with 77,000 handing over, what do you think is going to happen next year?
And
it's not going to suddenly stop, is it?
No. And I'm pretty sure developers, assumption here, but as long as they keep selling, they're going to keep building.
Of course. Why wouldn't you? It's their business model.
So at the end of this year, there's another 30, 40, 50,000 coming into the market.
It's going to be fun.
I'm with you. I say to everyone, stay in short let. Short let, I think, is going to pick up hugely.
Yep.
I think a lot more people are going to look at long term and say, hang on, I'm not getting the returns I want. They're going to come into the short let market again, because as we know, long term has gone up and surpassed.
That's been phenomenal. Yeah, 100%.
It's been phenomenal, but I think that's going to see itself correct to 20%, which I think could be more, given everything that we're seeing on the facts, on the figures that are being given to us. And I think you'll find the short let market, you use sources like AirDNA, they're suggesting that about 25 to 30,000 properties available for short term. Can that double? Possibly.
100%, I believe.
Possibly.
And
Why not?
And also what you're going to find as well is more and more people are going to go short term on the short term. What I mean by that is they're going to look at their property and go, right, I want to sell this property. However, could take 4 or 5 months to do so. If you're going to do that, but you've still got bills to pay, you've still got the service charges, etc., come to AirDXB. We can facilitate that. We'll take in viewings in between. You want to sell your property? Absolutely fine. Keys back in hand. No issues whatsoever.
Making furniture to make the property look good, because that'll be the next thing is when you're trying to sell, you're going to be competing with a lot more people. So your property has to stand out. So we've got our wrap company, we've got the interiors company. We can make property stand out. We can short-term rent it while you're trying to find a buyer, if that's what you want to do, of course. But then also it's putting it in short-term just to see where this market goes.
Yes.
Because that's the other thing. If this is happening now, is where we are in 12 months. I'm willing to bet you're going to see more. You're going to see these figures drop more.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. It's an interesting one. You're definitely, you can use the word cooling, you can use the word correction.
However, one thing I would say to keep an eye on is not what every broker is talking about. I think what everyone needs to actually keep an eye on is the numbers we're looking at, the numbers which are coming out of RERA, the factual figures and DLD, which are actually coming out. I think that's where the focus needs to be, not what your average real estate broker who's been in the market 6 months is saying might happen.
Well, this is it. Remembering brokers course on commission only, so they want they want deals. So look, to anyone that is listening to this, use the DLD data, talk to impartial people, talk to us at AirDXB. We're impartial. We from the perspective of how this market is going to progress from our side, if it goes up or down, AirDXB in the short-term market still functions.
100%.
So well, there's this or that. And of course, we've got partners and people we work with in the brokerage world who we can refer you to anyway. So just something I think that we need to talk about. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's see how this all pans out. Anyway, have a good day.
You too. All the best.